All right, it is 6:30. Do we want to give a couple more minutes for some more people?
Yeah, let's just wait a few more, a couple of more minutes, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that.
I'm gonna text Josie just to make sure she's gonna join. She said that she will connect as soon as her update completes.
Oh, okay. There she is.
Which is why I tried to do this half an hour ago. uh,
That's
anyway.
okay, my dear. Okay, Mr. Chair, would you like to?
Well, it is now 6:33. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the Adelante Progressive Caucus November General Membership Meeting. Uh, to this month, we've got special guests. We have Sarah Adelson, Chair of the AFT Union, Heather Benavides, APS Board Member, District 4, and Josefina Dominguez, APS Board Member for District 6. Um, just a few words off the top of my head. Uh, it's been a brutal few days for all of us, but I think the important, what I've been telling my friends and family who've been a little stressed. The solution is to focus state and local. Um, that's New Mexico kicked butt. We did our part, so we got the 60-day session coming up. We've got, we take care of New Mexico, and let's focus on New Mexico, and part of that starts at the very bottom, at the grassroots, and with school board and managing the education of our kids. So um, we have three guests. Just we're very informal. But if either of you want to talk for about 10 minutes each, we can have open Q&A afterward. But I figure we could just go by alphabetical order of last name and for about 10 minutes each person, say what you got to say, and then we'll just kind of do open Q&A after. Does that sound good to everyone?
Works for me.
Okay. Well, then I guess we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Adelson. Welcome.
Thank you. Love having a last name that starts with A. What can I say? All through school, first one, right? Thank you for putting on this program. It's really an important issue. Education is critical to the foundation of our democracy. So thank you for doing that. Um, just kind of a background. First, I'm not the president, and I've never been the president of AFT. Ellen Bernstein would be horrified. I am the co-chair, the Committee on Political Education of the union. So just wanted to clarify that. So I think we started seeing issues with public education with Ronald Reagan's Nation at Risk in 1983. It kind of was a huge attack on public education. And I think part of the purpose was to defund public education and to marginalize it and to just take away from the idea that we are the cornerstone of democracy. The intent was to perhaps, I think part of the intent was to create a non-functioning electorate. People, we didn't want intelligent voters. And so he and his cronies started with A Nation at Risk. And that was about the time I started teaching. And it was a dramatic shift. And that's when standardized testing came to be. And I know everyone, or most of, there's some, not everyone, but some of us with gray hair, we remember I took 3 standardized tests my whole life. I took one in 3rd grade, one in 8th grade, and I took the ACT and SAT and the graduate record, 5 exams. And I've been able to teach and have a productive life with that. But we have students now that literally take a test at the beginning of the school year. They take one right before we go on winter break. They take one springtime with the New Mexico standardized. I forget, they keep changing the name. Is 3 weeks out of teaching, at least 3 weeks, and then the makeups. That's a lot of time in a school year. And then we have one at the end. Kids, they tell me, well, I've retired now. All we do is test. And we test on things that haven't been taught to them because we're testing. And it's just kind of a catch. I don't see a purpose to it. And I just read that Massachusetts voters Tuesday, and I don't know the results, voted to either do away with their state exams or to keep them. And it looks like I think they're going to do away with it. And today I just read that the New York State has done away with the Regents test as a graduate requirement. So folks are seeing, parents are seeing, we're over testing children. And just some anecdotal things. I know a few years ago, we had a young lady, a young student, a refugee from the Congo. She spoke no English, and they put her in the library because I can speak French, and so could she. No English. Her first day was the first day of testing. She had to take the test because she was registered. Not a word of English. I'm not making this up. It was heartbreaking. All I could tell her was, how to get on the computer. And of course, she just typed whatever and was done in no time at all. Brought our scores down, but I just felt that it was ridiculous that we would do this. And that's testing. Um, we also, another thing, and then I'll let people talk, but the over testing and not teaching is just ridiculous. Students would say, I haven't learned this. Well, no, because you've been busy testing. And there's the NAEP, the National Assessment Education. It's a international test. And the United States does not do well. Finland blows everybody out of the water. And as all the books I've read about Finland, they say, in the United States, you do everything opposite that we do. So, maybe we should put our pride aside and look at what they do to be so successful. But we and they have great results and a very literate society. So I personally think we should take some notes. But the NAEP, the National Assessment of Education Progress, other countries do really well. If the United States takes the demographic of poverty out of that mix, if we remove schools of poverty, we're number one. So when when we talk about poverty as educators, a lot of times we are accused of making excuses that poverty can't be that big of a deal. It is. If a child is, and a few years ago, we needed 85% of our students. We couldn't find a student. We finally found him. He was in a parking lot with his mother. They had spent the night there because she had been beaten up the night before by her partner. So they escaped, and we found him. He had to come back with the counselor and take the test. I guarantee you that child was cold and hungry and probably didn't do very well on the math test that day. But that's what we're doing to our students, and and it's becoming a norm. So I do want to talk about the overtesting and how some states now are saying enough. Also, want to make it really clear, especially after this election, I had a lot of people text me saying, we need to bring civics back to classes, to teaching, to high school. It is a requirement in New Mexico. It is all high school students have to take civics. It is a requirement, as is history. It was demoted during, not only did Reagan try to destroy public education, but George W. Bush, with his No Child Left Behind, took electives away from our students, took civics, took history, took science. He just wanted students to do math and reading in order to create worker bees for his friends in the corporate world. And forget civics, because that might produce thinking voters. So it is back. Also, he did away with vocational studies. He really did a lot of damage to public education, and we're bringing that back. But I think it was a serious damage. And I know critical thinking skills were just done away with because, again, we don't want thinking voters. So I know when I was a young teacher, I would have to turn in my lesson plans, and I would have a block every Friday. I'd have to turn them in, and there was a block about what critical thinking skills are you going to be addressing there. It was there, and then suddenly it disappeared after No Child Left Behind. So those are just, some of the things I wanted to talk about. Testing, and that yes, we are coming back after No Child Left Behind. So I'm done.
Thank you very much for that. Next, we have Heather Benavides, APS Board Member for District 4. Welcome.
Thank you, Colton, and thank you to everybody here at the Adelante Progressive Caucus. And hi, Ann, it's nice to see you again. So I can kind of go into what I want to talk about, but I want to give a history of what I've done and then how I ended up on the APS school board, which has been wonderful. And I never thought in a million years this is where I would be, but I'm from New Mexico, grew up in Valencia County, have done many different things in state and local government, held positions, run for office. You all are very well aware of that. I currently work for the New Mexico Environment Department. And so working full time and holding a position on the APS board has been a challenge because it is a lot of work, but it's so rewarding. It's easy to get up and do it every day. But school board is not a place where I ever thought I would find myself. And I don't have a history as a teacher. You know, I know teachers. My mother-in-law was a teacher for 30 years in Belen, and I have friends who are teachers, and I deeply respect the profession. And I really wish, and I think that things are going to take a turn for the worse, obviously, with this election that we've just endured. But teachers need to be treated as the professionals that they are. And it's something that I've always been passionate about. And it's something I'm even more passionate about now that I'm on the board. But let's see, March, I think, Sarah, of 2023, March or April, Sarah and Ellen came to me and said, we need somebody to run for school board because Barbara Peterson, who held my seat before, is going to retire. And, you know, what do you think about it? And I said no several times. No. I don't want to run for anything else. I'm busy. About my thing. You know, I love students. I love children. I support teachers. But, you know, somebody's probably much better in that capacity than I am. And they asked me a few times and I said, no, you can find somebody else and, you know, find a Democrat, make sure it's a progressive person. And they came back to me and finally I said, okay, I'll do it. And then it came down to a few Democrats wanting to do it and it being very important to me that we not split the vote and hand it to somebody who's super conservative. And so that was kind of what I ran on. You know, if another Democrat enters the race, I'm going to withdraw because these are such important jobs that we cannot have people on the board that are going to try to erode public education. And honestly, that's what the conservatives are trying to do. And so a year ago tonight, I was elected and it's been a pretty wild ride, but it's been fantastic. And I was not prepared for how much I would love it. I'll be honest about that. But one of the things that it still irritates me now because I still hear this message is out there. But one of the things that really irritated me when I was running were the people who would say, why are you running? What are you going to do to fix APS? What are you going to do to fix this horrible district that has so many problems? It's the bane of the educational existence in New Mexico. And I didn't go to APS. I grew up in Valencia County, so I had no experience with it. I just know the wonderful people who work there and some of the amazing students. And so I finally said I think it was a reporter for the Albuquerque Journal, I said, I don't know that APS is bad. I said, I don't know that to be true. I think it's great. And I guess if what I'm running for is to stop people from saying that, APS is not bad. And when our students hear that, all they hear is that they're bad. They internalize it. And so it was very important to me to make that clear to people from that moment. I am not running to fix anything. There are so many wonderful things about this district that need to be highlighted. And yes, there are challenges that we're working on. No one board member can do it. No one superintendent can do it. We're all working together, but there are great things. And so throughout this conversation tonight, I hope that Sarah and my fellow board member, Josie, we can all talk about those great things. But please just remember that if you take nothing away from this evening, it's that, yes, there are challenges and there are great things going on at APS. And as Colton, you said earlier, it really resonated with me. This election was horrific. And I cannot believe we are back here again after everything that's happened. But the thing that I went back to, like you said, Colton, is we need to focus on what's around us, and it's our school boards and it's our commissioners and our counselors and our legislators and our state politics, because things are good here and we can keep them good. And we need to first and foremost protect our children. And as a school board member, I feel like that's my job. And I think the reason I finally agreed to do it is because I'm a mom. And you know, I think that if we're not all working to protect our kids, then we're doing it wrong. So, and the school's an extension of that, and they should feel safe while they're there, and they should feel cared for, and they should feel like they have value. And if they're not from here, as Sarah spoke about, one of the students, if they're not from here, they should be given services and help and assistance, and their parents shouldn't have to not participate in their parent teacher conferences because there aren't people there to help them understand what they're being told. And so all of that is happening within an APS, and everybody needs to know that. So let me take a quick drink of water because I'm running out of hydration here. So on the board, what we're working on now is our goals and guardrails, which you might be familiar with. And this is something that the board, prior to my joining it, had been working on. And I think it's a wonderful plan for the future for the students. And basically it's focusing on their literacy, their math skills, how they feel about themselves, their self-confidence and their self-efficacy and perseverance, and what's going to happen to them after they leave high school. So career readiness or college readiness. And I think it kind of narrows down the scope of what we're focusing on, but it's important because these really are the key things that are going to help them later in life. And there are guardrails in place that the superintendent must, kind of adhere to make sure that the goals are met, but without breaching any of what's in the guardrails, equity, for instance, making sure that all students have access to all the resources available to them. And we are there to make sure that happens. And so I've probably gone on too long and there's so much more I could say, but my experience on the board so far has been wonderful. And I am really glad that some of the things that I was told when I was running, like, book banning, which we're all afraid of. And now, unfortunately, we really do have to be afraid of. I've been telling people it's been wonderful because that hasn't come up. Now it's going to. And so, we're about to experience things that I don't think any of us were really prepared for. But for the most part, we get along really well. We don't have ideological differences that I've seen. I mean, every once in a while, there might be a very productive argument, but it's not nasty. And we're pretty much all on the same page. And I'm hoping it stays that way, because if we are not doing that, and if we're acting unprofessionally and without decorum, then we're not doing our job and the students are going to suffer. And that's counter to what we're there for. So I guess that's, really all I can say now, because I only have 3 minutes left. I can't believe I spoke that long, but I'm looking forward to your questions. And I will hand it over to my dear fellow board member, Josefina Dominguez.
Okay, well, I guess I better I'm going to put a timer on.
It's about 10. We're cool. We're cool around here.
Okay. So I'm Josefina. That was my birth name, and it became Josie when I went to public school, and much to the chagrin of my mother, but she acclimated. She couldn't say Josie, so she'd say Yossi. Hence my email, Yossi. So, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. My first language was Spanish. I pretty much lived in Mexico, Sonora, in a tiny town called Empalme, railroad town. Mom would leave me there because I was happy to be around my my older cousins. But when I hit school age, I had to go to school. And that was a rocky beginning. And so I'd have to say that Mom's experience in the US, even though she was born here, she was raised in Mexico. So she migrated back. My parents split up as a result of her choice to have me born here. My father was a staunch union guy with the railroad. And so all of that has informed my getting to this place. Mom used to look at the University of Arizona and say, one of these days, in Spanish, of course, you're going to go to that school and you're going to do well in school here, because I never had the opportunity. And I've come here so my kids can have this opportunity. So education has been the passion driving me throughout. I became a teacher, and first in Colorado Springs at a Catholic school, very interesting experience. We would take all the kids that were kicked out of the public schools and who could afford that option. And then I went to Austin, Texas, worked in a fabulous, very well-off district, Round Rock ISD there, joined the AFT there. Father at the Catholic school made it very clear that I needed to be part of the NEA or an association. So throughout my life, and when I came here, I became an ATF member and vice president of high school constituency. So all of that comes to bear in my work as a board member. I had my run-ins as a woman of color, single mom, with a child who was having difficulty entering school in kindergarten. I was told he had to be put on Ritalin. He had to be go into special education. I fought it. So I've had my run-ins with APS as a system, both as a teacher and as a mother. But I draw the line when people try to tell me how awful it is, how it's not any good. They scoff and want to, we have white flight and muppy flight, the Mexican Americans, the Chicanos who are leaving the public schools because they can transport their kids to charter schools or magnet schools. And my response is, I get it. I get that everyone wants the best for their kids, but what about the kids that get left behind? What about the kids who don't have the option to get in a car and get transported? Those are the kids that I'm committed to, and I will fight tooth and nail for them. And so I really am against expanding or getting rid of the moratorium on charter schools because they do take money away from public schools. And I'll give you an example. We're going to open up a dual language magnet school, Taft, to accommodate the kids at Coronado Elementary School, which sits in the middle of a very Hispanic community. And technically, I mean, those kids should go to Washington Middle School, but there's fear driving those parents out of that Washington. So they want, and they have constructed, we're fabulous at constructing excuses and justifications for why we don't want to mingle with and confront our fears, mingle with the locals. So we're opening up Taft Middle School. It'll be a K-8, and it'll be fabulous. It will be. It's going to be a great program. But that dual language program is going to take staff from a dual language school that is struggling to get staff, and that's Washington Middle School. And so Taft is going to be, we'll open at 300 kids, and we'll increase in attendance by like 50 every year. While at the same time, George I. Sanchez K-8 is at 900. And Roosevelt Middle School is losing enrollment because we approved a middle school charter on the other that will accommodate San Antonito elementary school kids. And the kids that are going to get hurt there are from Torreon, Escabosa, Chilili, and Tijeras, right? Kids who can't get in either because of the lottery or transportation, whatever. So, I see it very clearly. There's a two-tiered system developing. And again, I understand when parents want the best for their kids. But I say, if you're going to leave us, then at least give us a good fight with the legislature. Please, at least fight on behalf of the kids that you're leaving behind, because you are. And despite all this, all these challenges, we have a kick butt bilingual SEAL program, unlike anything in the Southwest, in Spanish, in a variety of Pueblo languages, which have been hard fought for, in Navajo. The pride that these kids show when they wear those stoles at their senior ceremony at Isleta is, I mean, our Native American kids are beginning to thrive, and we're seeing it in their scores because of programs like that. Our Indian Education Department is fabulous. They have done an incredible job at creating a safety net so that our Native American kids feel welcomed when they're in a school that has strong programs like that. They organize powwows, and if you haven't been to any of the powwows organized by students, that is inspiring. We have incredible AP classes. I mean, La Cueva we just had something on the APS media cycle posted today. AP classes, the participation rate, the pass rate is wonderful at not only La Cueva, but also Sandia High School, which has an international baccalaureate program, which is more of a global perspective over AP and encourages project-oriented curriculum. We have, what's the other? Well, there are other schools. But what I want to get to are our community schools, because community schools are going to help our most disadvantaged kids, those kids that get left behind. And the beauty of the ABC Community School Partnership, which does magic, finding the funding to help APS develop these schools, is critical. So what are community schools? Community schools are where, and this is a guardrail number 1, and we just had an exhibition last night of guardrail number 1, and I'll read you what the guardrail says. The superintendent will not allow the district to operate with inequitable distribution of school and or community-based wraparound and support systems. And one of the superintendent's interim guardrail goals is that the percentage of community school integrated systems of support partnerships, as measured by the leverage tracker in schools designated as priority or emerging by the district's performance framework, blah, 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 will increase from 17% in May of 2024 to 42% in May of 2027. That's significant, and here's why. These are kids that are in schools that the public, without thinking, trashes all the time. These are the kids who get those single-digit and low double-digit scores. And what these kids are lacking are healthcare, access to healthcare, to mental health, to food, um, to housing, to, let's see, enrichment. Because my kids were able to get enrichment. And enrichment came in the way of my paying for art classes, my paying for them to go to Explora, which I thought was way overpriced back when I was a teacher. Yeah, it meant swim lessons. So these community schools try to bring in programs that are going to boost the assets that these kids and their parents and their community already have, but we're not testing those assets. They don't appear on standardized tests. And I have to tell you, in full disclosure, I am of two minds on, on assessment. Um, I think it's complicated. Uh, but what I do agree with in the criticism is that poverty does matter. And so it's up to us to mitigate that poverty. And community schools do a fabulous job of mitigating the negative consequences of poverty. So they bring in community schools will create what they have call a genius hour. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, it's after school. It can be before or after school programming. And kids write down what their interests are. I want to be a meteorologist. I want to investigate geology. I want to go hike. I want to go, whatever their curiosity is. And the school adults will take those ideas and create clubs. And at the end of the day, these kids are psyched to go to Genius Hour. That is their motivation for coming to school. And good, as it should be. They get a chance to get in front of people. They make presentations. These clubs are not tracked. So you have children with disabilities in there, intermingling with, kindergartners, with third graders, kids with special needs, who are intermingling with kids who don't have those needs. And it's probably the best thing happening in APS that nobody wants to talk about. And why? Because everyone's afraid of that population, and everybody has this stereotype about what that population is and how, they need charity. And there are lots of programs. We don't understand why they can't access those programs. Well, you got to bring them to the school. That's how you provide access. So I'm quite passionate about. So this is the only thing I'll say about 2 nights ago. If the Democratic leadership is going to ignore the desperation among the working poor, this is what we're going to get. Because until we are willing to, I lived that desperation. I grew up an angry kid. And I don't know how I got away with, I wanted to run away in 9th grade, and my counselor talked me out of it. And this is what she told me. If I can find you an employer who will give you a place to stay, food to eat, and provide you with a job, that'll give you a little bit of money, but you're going to have to read and write a lot. Would you take it? I said, yes. Where do I get this job? She said, well, it's called college. And you got to stay in school. You can't run away. You have to get A's and B's, which is fine. But you got to stay put. And you got to get to your senior year, and they'll give you money if you do well. And it was my salvation.
Yeah.
But we have that anger to me is palpable. It's palpable when I hear counselors come to our public forum and say that there's been a 160% increase in violence in elementary school behavior. I mean, our kids are talking to us. They are telling us what their families are facing. And as far as I'm concerned, this party turned its back on them. They did. And it turned its back on, I saved in a separate IRA because I thought it was going to take care of me. And then maybe I might get a trip or two out of that IRA. No, I don't have that faith anymore. I think it's going to pay for
Yeah.
my damn property taxes. It's going to pay,
Yeah.
on and on. And if I'm feeling that way, imagine our families who are working 2, 3 jobs. So, my clarion call is it's all about the poverty. Let's address
Yeah.
that poverty. And
Definitely.
please support our public schools. And don't believe any candidate who tries to make it as simple as poverty doesn't matter. We just got to get the right curriculum in place, the right system in place. I want
Poverty is
North
definitely a thread that runs through public education and higher education, and uh, and you know, without going off other subjects, but like in rehabilitation with mental health and drugs and homelessness, it I and without getting too much in the weeds of last Tuesday, I think it goes back to it's the economy, stupid expression. Economics is the uniting factor among all colors, creeds, religions, gender identities, everything. It's the economy. And if people need to be able to access the the pie, so to speak. They need a slice of their pie. Um, Thank you very much. I'd like to open up to Q&A at this time. I noticed, Maureen, you had your hand up earlier. Would you like to go ahead and ask the first question?
Yes, since Sarah said there was a lot of over testing, I don't have any kids. I'm curious about numbers, like how much is the testing really in numbers?
Well, okay. So I'm going to jump in, and then Sarah can fill in. But testing was on the agenda last night. We asked about the New Mexico measure of student success and assessment, something like that, MASA, the New Mexico MASA. And I do know that we have this, so summative tests are those that take place every once in a while. My impression is that so we use iReady, a program called iReady that is we're told it's correlated to the standards on New Mexico MASA, and that they monitor this for correlation. My impression is that they test at the beginning of the school year, they test at the semester, they test in the second semester. Tell me they don't reassess at the beginning.
No, it's the beginning of school, before winter break, and then in May.
And in May is the summative, right?
Yeah.
Or well, is there a summative test, a New Mexico MASA for all?
No,
It's just
no,
the 3rd grade and the 8th grade. No?
no. I
Okay.
don't think there is one.
Do we have a Carol, are you a teacher? You're shaking your head as if you're
Let me get my
aware of this.
Yeah, hi, I'm Carol Trujillo Faith, CD1 representative for Adelantain. I'm a former teacher. I left the profession in November of 21, and I taught middle school primarily, and I taught 8th grade. I don't know if things have changed much in the 3 years since I left, but my experience is that with 8th grade, students did iReady for math and language arts. We completed the first diagnostic in second week of school, completed it the second one in December, and then about 2 weeks before the end of the school year, completed the iReady, the final diagnostic. So it's more like, at least in middle school and below, they're more diagnostics than they are summative assessments. So that kind of thing is more like in high school, and I don't know how much things have changed in high school, but that's my experience that I had with teaching middle school and the testing. So those were like the main tests. Now in elementary school, I know there's more diagnostics with like ice station and that sort of thing. But that's what I.
So I'm glad you prompted my memory, and so did my little notebook here. And I don't know why we blipped out on this, Heather, but yes, we are charting our goals. Goal 1 is reading. Goal 2 is math. Recently did the math progress monitoring session, and
Increases. It was good.
it was good. I mean, for the most part. I mean, there are 2 groups in 8th grade that worry me: African Americans and Native Americans. They took a dive, and they are now 9th graders. And there's about 300 of them, just under 300 of them. So I am told, I had a conversation with Superintendent Blakey about my concerns about this group, but we have systems in place that we hope, I guess, will catch them. They are the early warning systems, which is a program that tracks 9th graders if they happen to attend the schools that have that program. And so this is why I think it's important that, so Monsanto High School is a community school. They have that in place. Sandia High School is not a community school, but they have that system in place. Because all our 9th graders are struggling, but mostly it's the kids from that 70% population that is socially and economically disadvantaged. And that's, by the way, that's how many kids, that's the percentage of students in our district who are economically disadvantaged, 70%.
And I think it's important for context, for you all to know that what the board is actually charged with, and what we're focused on now are student outcomes, and the testing that Sarah has described and Josie and Carol. We would not be able to do our job if we did not have those test results based on the governance model that we use now. It's called the Students Outcome Focused Governance. And so it's the iReady for the literacy and numeracy, which are goal 1 and goal 2. Goal 3, post-secondary readiness, is based on the number of students that are enrolled and finish these courses that will lead to their post-secondary readiness. And goal 4, skills, habits, and mindsets, they gather that data from a test called Panorama. And so aside from goal 3, goals 1, 2, and 4 are all testing, and we base our work on those results. And so I hope that was helpful for some context into, testing or not, that's really where our job is and where we get the information to be able to do it based on the governance model that was chosen before I got there. And so there is a question in the chat, and it says, do they only test for reading and math? Does every child take them, including private schools homeschools, and charters? That's a really good question.
No. And the answer is no. Charters are not included in that.
And
Yeah.
private schools are not. Homeschool, I'm not sure about. I don't think so. But it's the iReady, which Carol spoke to, is elementary and middle school, and I was in middle school. And iReady was 3 times a year, 1 week for math, 1 week for reading. That's 2 weeks, 2, 4, 6 weeks out of the school year. That's a lot of time when it's 180 days.
Wait a minute. 6 weeks?
Well, yeah, 1 week for reading, 1 week for math, the first time in beginning of school. At winter,
Okay.
yeah. So it's 6 weeks total, which is a big hunk if you look at our calendars. And 8th grade does take science. They all have a science component. 6th, 7th, and 8th do have a science and a social studies. For the New Mexico, I forget what it's called now. It's been changed so many times in my career. The New Mexico, I can't remember.
What measure?
The measures of
that's
student
one.
success and achievement,
Yes,
the MASA.
yes. That it does have reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. So it does have the 5 subjects.
And so, Scotty, you've had your hand up, but Maureen says a whole week for a test, and then Carol says the iReady testing usually takes a week for both subjects, so it's closer to 3 weeks, and that does not include state testing on top of it.
No.
Wow. Okay, and Scotty, what's your question?
I wanted to understand the role of the school board. I thought at one point it was just to kind of oversee the budget. But it sounds to me like it's getting more more directed to affecting how kids are being taught. I don't know if that is correct. And if you have any sway with the superintendent to direct the principals, to direct the teachers how to improve things. I don't know if that question makes any sense to anybody.
Well, we can start with talking about what the role of the school board is. Well, and let's talk about the hierarchy. So we are elected by our constituents, and that's who we are responsible, and that's the obligation we have to make sure they're heard, and we are protecting their kids and their education. And under the school board is the superintendent, and the superintendent is in charge. She's the administration. And so I think a lot of people think the school board has direct impact on, teachers and who's hired and principals and, administrative tasks that are going on in the schools. And that may have been like that in the past. And I actually think it was. I was sitting with a school board member who had been on a school board for 25 years. I mean, that's insane to me, but in one of the rural areas and at a conference recently, and they were lamenting the fact that they were no longer allowed to hire and fire teachers. And I thought that that's just a nutty thing for school boards to be responsible for. But basically, we're responsible for the budget, for the hiring and the firing of the superintendent, and policy. And that's what we're there for. And we don't get involved with the administrative tasks of the schools. And Josefina and Sarah, if you want to go more into that, maybe Josie, you've been on the board for a while.
Well, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. So there's all kinds of policies, right? And the school board is in charge of the governance policy. And so we oversee our governance manual. And we're also in charge through statute. We're in charge of educational policy. And that overlaps sometimes with the administration. We just went through what is called a policy diet. And we identified all educational policies, and archived some, gave some over entirely to the administration because they were administrative, under the realm of administration. And there are 6 that we might share. So we have in fact, board member Benavides will continue her work on that policy diet, and she and board member Jackson will work to figure out what to do with those 6. But this new model, this new framework, what I love about it is that it has been a lot of work. But when I first got on the board, I was attending 11 different meetings a month. It was madness. And I really didn't understand. So I was chair of the capital outlay committee. And to me, it just felt like a parade of information being thrown at me. And some of that was good because it's a huge district. And even before I ran, I spent 10 days on my computer on the website. And I highly recommend that all of you go to the SAPR, SAPR web page. It is a wealth of information, data. And we can thank Richard Bowman for being so committed to transparency that he pushed the issue of getting data on all our kids, on the schools, on the website. So that's what I did for about, oh, there it is. Heather, thank you for posting it in the chat. Mm-hmm. And just take time. I mean, I spent 8 hours a day for 10 days before I said, with a tremble, okay, I'll run for office. And Sarah promised me that Labor would get me across, and they did.
They are a machine. Amazing people.
Yes. And so our jobs there's no longer a committee on capital outlay. There's no longer a committee on instruction and accountability. We are down to 3 committees: audit, finance, committee, and policy. But policy in a very limited way, right? Educational policy and governance policy. And I'm going to put in a plug right now for what the policy committee is up to. I want to see more transparency. I want to see more collaboration. I abhor the ad hoc committee system because it's an end run around the policy committee.
Josie, do you want to give us an example of what it is, the ad hoc committee, the way it's happening? And
so we're working on the language that says that the president currently is allowed to create ad hoc committees. But, okay, so for example, our coaches from the Council of Great City Schools, this is the entity that is helping us implement the student outcomes focused governance framework. We received a revised timeline for implementation, and on there it says empanel a committee to review the governance manual. The policy committee is doing that. So somebody is trying to take that away from the policy committee, which was voted on. So my effort is to democratize our system, ensure that there is broad representation on all committees, in all decisions. I don't think the president should be meeting with the superintendent weekly alone. I think there should be an executive committee meeting with the superintendent. Minimally, it should be at least 2 people, and there should be a report to the rest of the board. We need to know what you talked about and what decisions were made. That's not going over very well. What's another example? Well, okay. So for the most part, I love my job. For the most part. And we are called on to fight the good fight. And that can be frustrating. And it's hard to bear witness to things like I was supposed to present on a panel about how we handled our superintendent search. I was not able to make it because I wanted to go to the National Indian Education Association conference to learn about tribal consultation. I recommended that the president of the board, Danielle Gonzalez, and our first Native American to ever serve in 130 years, our vice president, Ronalda Tomorito, both represent us on that panel. Well, Ronalda got pushed out. And instead, the de facto, and I refer to board member Jackson as the de facto vice president, because she is in every decision that our president makes. They both ended up presenting. And I voiced my concern about it. I made it very clear that consider the optics. Consider the optics. Who gets left out and who is allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a level of gatekeeping that worries me. That worries me. And this is why elections matter. We can't, I mean, I'm going to continue to fight the good fight. I'll run for policy chair again, or encourage somebody to run who believes in transparency, in broad participation. And I mean broad, everybody should participate in onboarding and leadership capacity building, because when a chair invites a novice, a new member to an agenda setting committee meeting with the superintendent and staff, it's powerful. You learn the ropes immediately. It becomes onboarding, orientation, and many other things, leadership capacity building. So when you see it done, you imagine it, how you will do it, and how you might even change it for the better, I hope. But I don't know why this, to me, it makes perfect sense. I'm an elected official. I was elected democratically. I don't understand what the threat is, but it's a threat. What I am talking about now seems to be threatening. and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to promote democracy on the school board, in our governance, the way we govern each other, the way we govern, the way we implement this student outcomes focused governance model. So
Carol,
I'm gearing you up. I'm giving you a pep talk for next year's board elections. Choose wisely.
Yeah, we're definitely the group that gets angry and gets fired up. And sometimes, sometimes it works. Carol, you have a question?
Hi, yeah, so I actually have three questions. The first question that I have is regarding teacher workload. When I was a teacher, I was easily pulling 60 hours a week, just doing the basic stuff. I would have to say probably 30 to 40% of my work was proving that I could actually teach rather than doing the teaching. My husband can attest to the difficulty that we had when I had to write my dossier to go from a level 1 to a level 2. I do not think that dossier is in any form or shape helpful to, I feel like it's busy work, and it's not even just busy work. Dossiers cannot be shared, and I feel like that's a real sad thing that dossiers cannot be shared, because it's so great to see what your colleagues are doing in their classrooms, and I feel like that's a great resource, but you can't look at that. And it really took away from my teaching. So I'm hoping that maybe we can re-look at and evaluate how we're evaluating our teachers, because yes, kids are tested. Teachers, I believe, are very, very much over tested, over questioned. I do not understand. I mean, I understand kind of why, but like the Charlotte Danielson method for evaluating teachers was never meant to be used as an evaluation tool, but it's been adopted. So these are kind of some things that I kind of want to bring about, like how are we going to address the work life of teachers? Because it's just saying you're going to pay a teacher more isn't going to solve the problem. My second question is, why was the committee on instruction and curriculum disbanded? And I had another question, but now I can't seem to find it. So I guess it's just those two questions. How are we going? Why was that committee on instruction and curriculum disbanded? And how are we going to look at teacher assessment? So thank you.
So I'll answer very quickly why the instruction and accountability was disbanded, because it's not in our,
Governance model.
it's not governance. It's not related to, we can't, it's too much in the weeds. That's administrative. And also it's a state thing, right? So, I mean, we can probably advocate, get behind a group who is advocating for the changes that you just mentioned, Carol, but you got to organize.
And those are state issues. The dossier it's a state issue. But let's
And that's one. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, Sarah, but like that's one thing that like here in Adelante, like we're trying to like take issues and like take them to the roundhouse.
Exactly, and that's where we have to take the dossier.
And then I remembered my third question is, I can't believe I forgot this one. Why are teachers not allowed to be on the school board?
Conflict of interest, yeah. You have to give up your job.
Right.
Or
because they'd be hiring their boss.
Yes.
Find a foundation that is friendly to teachers, get a job with the foundation, and then run for school board.
That sounds like a blueprint.
Yep.
So I don't know that just to kind of jump on that a little bit. So like, I don't work for APS, so I'd be better qualified to run for APS board than a teacher. That seems kind of odd.
Well, I mean, so I was a teacher, 30-year teacher, but I'm retired. You can't be employed by, it's a conflict of interest, because if you're employed by the district and the only employee that you oversee and evaluate is the
superintendent. Right. So you would essentially be the boss of your own boss. It doesn't make sense.
And
I would think that ostensibly you'd, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Colton.
I was just going to think, like, if you won your election, then you'd leave your teaching job and join the board.
Mm-hmm.
So
you could do that.
Yes.
Right.
You can afford that.
But it's, yeah, it doesn't pay much at all.
Not at all. And I believe the board signs our pay, well, not anymore, no longer for me because I'm retired, but I think it's the Board of Education that signs our paychecks. So the superintendent and the board, we work under them, and it is a conflict. Now, if you taught like in Berlin and lived in Albuquerque, you could run because you're not working for the district. You could be a teacher in Los Lunas and run, but you cannot be an employee of APS.
But it does make sense, and it's good to have teachers, ex-teachers, former teachers on the board. They've got the experience. We have Josefina. She's a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
And I think that not having been a teacher is helpful. You know, I've experienced in other areas. And we do have a variety of board members with different professions and experience, and I think it's helpful.
Yes.
Megan asked what kind of communication does the board have with active teachers? I know Josefina with the school I retired from, Kennedy Middle School, is in Josefina's district, and she came often to our school. She was there for events and just to check in, and she came to our IC meetings. So there was and it wasn't just Kennedy that she came to, but it was other schools. And I know several board members, Barbara Peterson, the former board member, would go to the different schools. So I don't know, that's the kind of what you were looking for, Megan, but several of the school board members are engaged with their different schools in their district.
Well, and there's no limit on the communication, so we can
No.
have as much or as little communication as we want, or as we have the opportunity to do. And for those of us who work full time, it's a little harder. You know, I have to take the day off if I'm going to go visit
Exactly.
people or attend an event. And oftentimes they're in the middle of the day, and it's so hard, and I miss a lot, and that's really, really difficult. But we can have as much communication as we want. There's no limit on that, and I
Yeah.
think that's a great thing. I mean, there's the thing that's hard about it though, and whether it's we're talking to parents, we're talking to students, we're talking to educators, there are only certain things that we actually have control over. And so there's ongoing communication, and we hear concerns and we can elevate them, but there's very little we can actually do directly to address a concern. And so that's tough.
So I would like to, I'd like to put a plug in for this new platform that we have called Let's Talk. And you can, the superintendent implemented this platform because she really does want to hear from community. And she really does want to track how well APS responds. Now, keep in mind, it's new. And if you used it the first three, let's see, July, August, September, October, the first 3 months, you may not have gotten the response. You might have gotten lost in the ether. But I strongly encourage everybody to use it. You just go to the APS website, you'll see a button or a tab that says Let's Talk. You enter your concern, your question, your observations, and submit it, and you'll get a response. And then you have to grade the response, which is good. She wants to know. She wants to know how effective we are at. I mean, that's always been a big concern at APS. It's not responsive. So she's working on that, and she's also working on just trying to streamline information. And some people are unhappy because I have to get a kick out of this. The other night, when we were discussing the roles and responsibilities of the president and how we wanted to amend the governance manual, one board member said, well, it's just not efficient if one person, if you go to a committee or a more broad participatory approach to making decisions, you know, imagine our superintendent. What if we tied her hands if she had to have a committee? It's like, no, very different. She's the chief of, she's
Mhm.
CEO of our district, and we hired her to be that. So it is her prerogative. But we were elected, right? But she is taking advantage of that prerogative. She is clamping down on information. She wants to know everything. And I think it's because she's trying to figure out the system that will be more responsive to teachers, to community members, to parents, to students. So use it, please, and encourage your students and your colleagues to use it.
And part of what, as board members, we're evaluated on is our community engagement. And so in that question, it mentions a town hall. So we often do community events, sometimes with each other, sometimes APS sponsored, like our budget event that we just had. And it's a way for us to engage with the community and in a large setting and hear concerns, and parents can speak with each other, and we are encouraged to do it. And so there is lots of different methods to communicate with board members and to people in the district. And so please utilize them. And there are a few other questions I wanted to address if we can. Can someone talk a little
Yeah.
about district-wide science-based reading curriculum? Somebody said they've heard it's very phonics based and dry with little opportunity for kids to develop a love of literature and joy in reading.
And I responded. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh.
We have a wicked smart superintendent who has a more holistic understanding of the science of reading.
Yes.
I love to, okay, so the Albuquerque, the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce thinks it knows all about reading. And she has won them over.
Oh,
She
good.
explained to them, she said, you know, phonics, yes, phonics, phonemes, phonemic awareness, all that is important. But that alone doesn't give you proficiency. It is a tool on the way to comprehension. And so she explained the importance of background information. She said, you know, we can all read a technical manual, but it doesn't mean that we understand it. And so then she segued into the importance of community schools, Genius Hour, how we need to infuse our children, those from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, we need to infuse them with background information through experience, right? Yeah. And so some people just, anyway, they had an aha moment and they were open to hearing her.
Mm.
And so it was a relief to have them like applaud that. So,
Well, and the superintendent also had the state of the district, which had never happened. And that was talk about communication. Facio building was completely packed with parents, and it was fabulous. And she is an educator, and she knows about good practices. And phonics is always included in reading, but it's not the end all to be all, and it doesn't instill a love of reading, a love of literature. It's a tool, but students get turned off if it's just phonics all the time.
Yeah.
and I have to put a plug in for culturally and linguistically relevant curriculum.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Because I'm sorry, if you cannot engage my lived experience, you ain't getting anywhere with me.
Mhm.
And so that's another, is that guardrail 3? I believe it's guardrail 3. We,
To read literature that looks like you, that looks like the
Mhm.
student.
and here's something else about Gabriela. I
She's
mean,
awesome. We love her.
she's just amazing.
Mhm.
So she gave her colleagues permission as acting superintendent. She gave them permission to talk about, okay, this is what the data is showing on literacy. But we know that if we don't address goal number 4, which is
Skills, habits, and mindsets.
habits, and mindsets, perseverance, resilience, that kind of thing. If we don't weave that into the teaching, and if we don't weave culturally relevant guardrail number 3 into this,
Into the high quality instructional materials.
we're not going, we have to be able to talk about all of it. And it was telling that at that meeting, I asked a question to that point, but I brought in the culturally relevant and linguistically relevant element, and I was called out by a board member. That's not in the system that we're supposed to follow. And I love that the administrator answered the question anyway. But I think so. This is the downside, right, of this framework, that some board members interpret it so myopically.
Mhm.
But
Where did it come from? Where did this thing come from?
Well,
yeah,
its
go ahead.
original name is the Lone Star Governance Model.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Sounds Texan.
it is. You know that district that got taken over in
Houston.
Houston? Well, Abbott hired AJ Craybill to
Mm.
help him implement this student outcomes focused governance. Now, I'm not going to throw this framework under the bus entirely. I like the framework. I like the bones, but damn it, we're going to make it ours.
Good.
We have a lot of work to do.
We have a take on it. And let's just say there is there's some growth, some interesting conversations, some interesting work that is happening. And all I can say is welcome to west of the Mississippi.
So we're coming up on the last 5 minutes. I just want to make sure we've addressed anything in the chat we haven't addressed yet. There's one question from Michelle Meters. Are we working to hire more teachers and other staff from other states? Do people know we have the highest teacher pay in the region and that they can teach real history and science here? And then just scrolling down to see if there's anything more.
Nancy Harmon has a question about literature, stories, and imagination. And are there? And yes, there are.
And also sorry. And then just Michelle threw in another question at the end. The state has a ton of money to spend. Why don't you just get paid overtime like cops? Why can't we increase pay per student funding, quit cutting programs? So if
Teacher
we
pay
can,
is statutory, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, let's go to our legislators because of course our educators deserve more money.
so is that as simple as finding out who your state rep and state senator is and writing them an email, or go knock on their office at the Roundhouse? And
Both.
what is your perspective as a board? What is the best way for the average citizen to advocate?
Well, I mean, always talking to the legislators is going to be your best bet. Maybe go to the ones that are education focused. I think Representative Sariñana, off the top of my head. Do you guys know of the other ones?
Natalie Figueroa,
Yes.
Andres Romero, who is chair of the education committee.
Right. What
And-
about Joy Garrett? Maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Joe Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Stewart.
Mhm.
But it's always best to go connected to a group.
Mhm.
And so if you're gonna go at least 3, 4, 5, and we are with Adelante Progressive Caucus, and be, be focused about the messaging and each person's role. But yes, and I think Sarah is a wonderful organizer, and you can always use her as a resource. But
Yes, absolutely.
but if there's something that comes out of your group organically from your members, then absolutely. But promote
And we're always
schools.
open to guidance. We want the platform of Adelante to be that for the average person who may not know exactly how to get involved. We invite, the only requirement is to be a registered Democrat and join our caucus and discuss ideas. And if we agree on we're going to pick these issues to pursue, then we'll do it and we'll sign our letter. The Adelante Progressive Caucus cares about these issues, and that's what we want to facilitate.
And Michelle
Is the-
Meters, Joy Garrett, Representative Joy Garrett, a few years back started a Grow Your Own program that is now in law and is funded by the state. And it's for schools that have educational assistants that don't have a degree, but have been in a school working in a classroom for decades. They will pay their tuition, their books, and give them time to become a teacher. So that's one. The Grow Your Own is one of the venues New Mexico is using to address the teacher shortage, and it's been very successful and continues to be successful.
So in the last few minutes, do we have any closing thoughts from our guests?
I want to invite you all to watch one of our meetings. Come in person.
When are they? When are they, Heather?
They are, I know I'm going to get this wrong. They're on Wednesdays, but is it the second and the fourth Wednesday of the month? I think it is.
But yes, I think
Yep.
so.
Yeah.
And is this available on Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so-
yeah, well, they're streamed on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And
So
you
we
can
would-
also
web
sign up.
page.
You can
Oh,
sign
sorry.
up for public forum,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
whatever your concerns are, show up and
Mhm.
And I'm happy to funnel information, like fund the schools we need. No elementary school should have only one principal. Every elementary school should have at least 2 principals, and I would say 3, because have you ever been to a 5-year-old birthday party? You need at least 3
People in
principals.
charge.
You need a nurse, you need a counselor, and full-time, not half-time. Kids don't get hurt half-time.
Well, the nurses are busy doing sex changes, so they can't be there.
Oh, God.
That's a secret, Sarah. Don't let that out.
They can't even give an aspirin.
And dispelling,
Oh.
so dispelling those sorts of, myths that are out there would be wonderful. It would be great to have people come in and just support the schools. I mean, we're beleaguered.
There's so many good things to see. There's so many wonderful things to celebrate in APS, and people need to know that. And the only way you're going to know is if you come see it, because we know the media doesn't highlight. So
Go to
Yeah.
SACR. You're going to see wonderful things. You see some
Yes.
problems too, but that's not the entire picture.
right.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's really worth it to go.
Mhm. And now
Well,
more than
I
ever, our
just
public
wanted-
schools need to be protected.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming. This has been really enlightening and hopeful in the way that maybe we can, take some action, do something positive to make a difference for our kids, future generations, So thank you for coming and sharing.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And maybe at some point in the future we can have the whole board and I don't know
Oh,
how.
that's a rolling quorum.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
be a
Can't be more
quorum.
than three.
Well,
Oh, okay.
just have to post it and it would be a public meeting and
Oh,
which,
yeah. We have
which I
that
think
same
these are
issue.
anyway, but mhm.
Guardrails. So.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. And thank you all for joining and have a good night, everyone. It is 8 o'clock. So we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Great.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.